Do you enjoy the process of designing something specifically so it can be mass produced?
I definitely think about it a lot. I think I don't do it like I would if I was working for Behringer and I had a real, not in a bad way, but in terms of how that real massive expertise in how do you actually produce something that is shockingly cheap. You know, that idea of being able to say, if we do this, we can do, or you know, like Teenage Engineering's latest thing, being able to create basically a kind of NPC made out of Lego for 300 quid is incredible. And that being able to do that is an amazing skill.
Yeah.
I suppose in some ways I see that as much of an aspiration as making something like beautiful and big and handmade and so I think they're aspirations of both ends.
You don't need to make something replicable. You could, every single module that you design, you could make it as a one-off on stripboard or something.
Yeah.
You know, but you choose to make it.
No,
available to people.
I definitely see it as publishing.
Yeah.
Because my background was in journalism, and I remember when blogging appeared, suddenly I could publish to an audience without. I was going to say without a gatekeeper. That sounds sort of somewhere negative because I was that sort of a gatekeeper. But I was a magazine editor.
Didn't you invent the paywall?
I didn't invent the paywall. I was certainly involved in the paywall. But
I'm not holding that against you. I think the subscription model is going to save the world.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But what I mean is that being able to when blogs came along, if I wanted to make a sort of daily, 3 times a week publication about weird old musical instruments, and for it to have an audience of 10,000 people a day reading it, I could do that. It cost me literally nothing and paid me a small amount of money in ads. Whereas 5 years before that, I would have to have gone to someone like Future Music and said, you've got computer music, you've got Future Music, how about you have weird retro music edited by Tom? Why don't you invest, 2 million quid in launching this and give me a team of 5 or 6 people and we'll try and, I suppose it's essentially like Electronic Music Magazine, it's that, which is that sort of quite that scale of budget. But the amount of effort and palaver that goes into doing that, and it's nice to be able to employ people and have a team, but it's an awful lot of effort. And I think so for me, that reaching an audience, I do think is something I want to do. I wouldn't be especially interested in making something. I'll make something like as a gift for somebody.
Sure.
I'd make presents for people where you make a one-off, but I would never be particularly interested in making a one-off just for myself. I don't think.
I think it's really interesting that you made the Music Thing Modular notebook.
Yeah.
Because that's more of a book
yes.
as well,
a
physical book. But you've that obviously is informed by your own process of drawing things out, but you must have then thought about other people doing it. So did you make them for yourself, or
that was
people?
Definitely wanting one for myself, I think.
Right. Okay.
But again, I could have just printed out some sheets of A4 paper with module templates on them.
But you've packaged it really.
But nicely. But I thought there is a way of other people might want this, and I think that's what would drive me to then kind of finish it off.
Yeah.
Although unfortunately the first run of that I managed to get the pin out on a TL074 wrong, so that was slightly unfortunate.
It happens.
Later editions of that are not incorrect.
I didn't. I was telling you earlier. I tried to make a. I did make a SMD version of the Logic module, and I didn't realise that the SMD pinouts are different to 3-hole
sometimes,
ones. So
yes,
it's an easy mistake to make. It's a very easy mistake to make. Is that how you normally start your stuff drawing? Because one of the main aspects of the book is the grid paper.
Yeah, I do some of that, but also I think that was it was around the time I was doing Control.
Okay, yeah.
Where it was so physical, it literally had to be something you feel. But I will normally work in Illustrator I work in kind of Illustrator and Eagle simultaneously,
Okay.
and then constantly going in and out of Falstad trying things, and then I'll have a big long like Google document that has sort of what I've learned and what I need to know and that sort of stuff all the way through it, and sort of links off.
I know for a while you were doing waking up really early in the morning to do extra
Yes,
work and
that's
stuff.
what I was
Is that-
doing. I'm not doing that as much now because I have more like all day to do it.
Sure, so you don't have to.
I mean, I still go at the same sort of time, but yeah, I found that really good doing like an hour, maybe an hour and a half, from sort of 7:30 to 8:30 or so every morning, and being able to set aside that time meant I always had time to do stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Rather than being like I'm finishing stuff or I've got a deadline. Somehow it was really useful, and it meant there were quite a lot of projects where I would spend months and months on something and then abandon it. That was just kind of fine because I learned stuff along the way.
Right. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Whereas somehow I think if I hadn't had that time set out, I would have felt, I don't know, I'd have felt more annoyed somehow. It felt like you haven't wasted the time because that's your time to do it.
Yeah.
So you've got as much time as you can fit in there, and that's totally fine. It's quite different now trying to understand how to, because I'm not really doing it full time now, because I've got other things to do, but it's sort of, you've got a bit more flexibility there.
Do you find it difficult to have a chunk of time, like an hour and a half, leave it, then come back to it?
No, I found I was fine with that, because as long as you know that's what you're doing, you get you're deliberate with that, so you make sure you've got
Right. Yeah.
and you can usually make some, as long as you've got enough time, so you can make some progress, so you can decide something or build something or whatever.
Yeah, I need to sort that out in my brain, because I kind of feel if I have a chunk of time and I don't feel like I can complete the task during that time,
then you don't want to
I
start.
don't want to start.
No.
Yeah.
Try
to get around that.
I think the what was I going to say? The other thing is that being able to complete things. I think it's just breaking it down into small time. I don't know.
Yeah, but what is completing things as well? Things never feel that complete to me.
No. Well, I suppose it's completing each stage, though, isn't it? It's what the other thing is thinking about questions you're answering. So what I will be like, and I'm making it sound like I'm super organised and super clear. I'm really not. But you will be like, I actually need to decide: is it going to be like this, or is it going to be like this,
That's it.
or do I need to start again?
Yeah.
And even if you don't stick with that decision, just saying, oh, okay, I reckon it's going to be this. I found that really useful.
So is that a process of elimination?
Yeah, or it's just deciding. If it's like if you've got those, like the thing I'm doing at the moment, which is mostly in Illustrator, because it's just trying to work out which interface elements am I going to need. Because the circuit I'm designing, you could have 20 or 30 different interface elements on it, as other people doing a similar thing have done, and I want to do it with sort of 3 or 4. So it's then saying, well, which ones am I going to pick, and what do I need to know to be able to pick? Right. So you might be able to go and use a bunch of other modules together to go, okay, this is kind of the effect I'm going for. If you turn the knob like that, does it do something interesting? Or can I just have it fixed in one position so I don't need it brought to the front? Or sometimes you need to, like, I love the story with Rob Hordyke when he designed the Bluetooth box. There's another version of the Bluetooth box that's about twice as big.
Okay.
It's got all these other controls on it. And that was his one that he designed because he knew the circuit was interesting, but he wasn't quite sure which bits were good. Right. So he then, by playing with that big version, was able to go, actually, it's this one that's just got 12 controls in it.
Have you been able to predict that before you've made things before? Or do you have to have it in your hand?
No,
really
I think, I think so. I definitely something like Control, I was very confident that was the right sort of thing. I then, added a few other happers that probably weren't really necessary, but physically, that was something that as soon as I kind of saw it in my head, I was like, that's definitely a thing I want. And then it was a relatively simple circuit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's then, and that was definitely, I was very happy with that as a physical object. Similarly, like that little 8MU, the little MIDI fader thing, you kind of had a vision of that as an object. And then once in your hand, you're like, that's the right sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then,
it had to be that size.
Yeah, I think so.
Would you have wanted to make it if the components or something had dictated that it had to be twice as big? Would you have abandoned the project then? Or?
Probably. I always wanted to make something about the size of a credit card.
Yeah.
I had this funny idea in my head of something credit card sized, and it wasn't until much later on that I actually said, "Well, I'm pretty sure this is smaller than a credit card," but it was. But so I had various ideas that would be smaller than a credit card. For some reason, that image I had in my head.
Yeah. No, I find that often. It's just one singular thing you want to achieve.
Yeah.
It's the size of a credit card. It's
like you were saying, it's got to be 4MU. I mean, I think Modular is very nice for that. You're like, if I can't do it in 4MU, it's probably not worth doing.
I'm not going to do it. Yeah. I definitely feel like that with a lot of stuff.
And that's where things like price comes in as well. If this is going to cost more than £100, it's not worth doing.
Yeah. I was showing you my tin sequencer.
Yeah, exactly.
I made that all the way as a sequencer in a tobacco tin. But I brought it all the way to fruition, and then realised it was just.
And did you work out how much it would cost?
Yeah, it was about £100. Yeah.
That's it.
It was just stupid for a Baby 8 sequencer in a tin. But it's in a tin.
But you probably could. Well, I suppose that's where you probably could have sold them.
Because that's the thing. It's the size of a credit card. It is a tin. Yeah. That was the whole point. It's in a tin. I mean,
I suppose that's where as well, because something I'm interested in. I was saying I like doing things that are sort of manufacturable.
Mm.
But I'm also interested in that idea of talking to kind of manufacturers and designers. Some people this year have been saying the thing that still really sells is big, expensive things.
Yeah.
People saying we can get in, 15 $5,000 keyboards and they just go, but 20 £300 drum machines, nobody wants them.
Do you know why that is?
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's a whole range of possible things about how the economy is and tax.
Sure.
If you can spend £5,000 on your profits, then why wouldn't you? That sort of thing. But it's a very different type of object. I think it's very interesting. And I was talking to one designer who had one of these things. I was like, well, what else have you got? And he kind of goes out and he's showing me these plans for this like even bigger, even more complicated, even more like premium thing that he's planning that looked really cool. So there's something interesting about that idea of saying, what if you weren't limited by cost? I mean, you're still limited by cost, but if you were thinking of your cost as being £2,000, or you're thinking of your cost as this is a bespoke premium object. So there's a difference between maybe a thing in a tobacco box isn't right because it doesn't feel premium enough, but that thing in a little oiled wooden box maybe is something that people would want to spend £500 on.
Sure.
It's like guitar pedal world where people will spend £500 on a guitar pedal because it looks and feels nice.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's a whole market I don't really understand.
I do wonder if my liking of the scientific-y panels is a drawback. Because I do see a lot of modules that sell quite well have very lovely patterns and things on the panel.
Well, you just need a friend who's an artist.
Yeah, but I don't want to, is the problem.
No, that's the thing.
So there's so many areas where I know that this would be more profitable. I can't bring myself to do it.
You may well also be wrong, I think. I think that's the thing. I think it's not... you can imagine something more profitable, but I think going with your own instinct is always quite good for this sort of thing. Like I've got Bafaco. I went to visit them in Barcelona and they gave me a Rampage kit, which has got this amazing panel that one of their friends is an artist did. And it's completely different from the others. It's got like people on it and ladders going up and down, all this kind of stuff. And it's an amazing, beautiful thing, and it doesn't detract from their their aesthetic vibe. But I think it's a really interesting idea, and I think because you've got such a strong aesthetic, it would be interesting to say, find somebody and say, do you want to do something like this and see if it works?
Yeah, it would be at least as an A/B test.
Well, just as an interesting vibe, because it might be because your stuff is very aesthetic. You're saying you've got the sort of sciencey thing.
You say that though,
there's nothing more aesthetic than a 42 HP blinking lights.
I spent a lot of time doing that actually. Yeah. Which is actually the complete opposite reason to why they're like this. The main reason is because I'm naturally a perfectionist.
Yeah.
And so my idea was this is the standard font on KiCad.
Yeah.
I don't do any importing of graphics.
Yeah.
I just literally write it out. I have a standard spacings for everything. So that's how much room we've got on the panel. I can't fit any more on, and it just looks like that. Everything's the same. You see all the knobs and stuff line up.
Yeah.
Because of time, because I won't be able to stop myself tweaking it. So I just have these rules to stop myself. But then I do this where I've taken pictures of bought a real teletype, taken the individual pictures of all of them, put them all in Photoshop, pull them all out, and then scoured the internet for like a texture of like Tolex. To do this, which is So I don't really stick to my own rules, do I?
I think it is all the aesthetics of these things are important.
They are, yeah.
And I think saying I don't think you can say, well, I'm going to opt out of the aesthetics by having it like this.
In a way, yeah, by default, then you're engaging with it.
Yeah, exactly.
By opting out of it. Yeah, you can't escape it, I guess. And I've chosen these knobs. They're not, I've not random knobs that I found around.
No.
But why did you like the Davies ones?
Because I think I just kind of started with them at the beginning.
Okay.
And they seem to go well with. I don't know. I think once you got that big one there, which I can't remember how I ended up with that one. Could even have been like. Because I also like the kind of booklet style ones, the sort of like on Control. You've got those.
Yeah, really nice.
Which are also Davies, but
you must have taken a lot of time to decide the ones on Control.
Well, with that, I those were the ones I had in mind to start with because they're really nice. Right. They just feel they're a good shape.
Yeah.
But I have got one that's got ridiculous £15. These kind of crazy Davies knobs that look like real old. They look a bit more like old test equipment. I'm saying that to you, they don't really look like old test equipment, but
I like the Marconi style.
These ones, yeah, those are beautiful. Well, those are like Neve, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just got it right, I think.
Yeah, but then you end up. The other thing I think is interesting. Those are for switches, aren't they?
Yes.
Because you often get people put the switch knobs on pots, which is wrong.
So wrong.
It's like one of the early Turings had a chicken head knob, and that's just wrong.
It doesn't feel right, yeah. When I made these, I could have put these knobs on so it matches the rest of. But it's you designed it with these ones.
You've got the little grey ones. They're quite elegant.
I like the grey. Yeah, I think it's a good colourway. Yeah, I really like it. I should get this one grey as well, actually, to match. we've got ivory kind of ones.
I'd say I'm not convinced by the ivory ones. Funk always put ivory ones on there, and I feel like they should be black. But
I'd like them.
I don't have a strong opinion about it.
But I definitely felt I should put the ones on there that were intended in the original design.
Yeah. I think for more complicated things. So the moment I'm designing something that's got lots of knobs on it, and then you really need to get a hierarchy that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
So, that's just got the knobs that are on that, but just more of them. But that becomes an interesting, and then you also then get into pricing issues because you realizing that one of those, which is the sort of tool trimmer, costs about 80p. One of those, well, that's a switch, but one of those, with a Davies knob on it, will cost you about £1.50, £1.60. So if you've got, 10 of them on there, you have to work out where you're going to spend your money, 'cause otherwise you're spending a lot of money on knobs. And that's a real balance as well there to say, because what people always forget is that it's the interface elements and the front panel that are what you're paying for.
Exactly.
In most cases, unless you've got particularly expensive microcontrollers or DACs, the circuitry is essentially free.
And you may as well be doing it on a computer if you don't have the actual physical interface.
Yeah, exactly. But but equally, you've got to work out which. I think also because we're slightly spoilt, because something like this has a lot of interface with a lot of massive optimization on it. So that'll all be those kind of membrane switches.
Yeah.
So it'll be quite cheap for them. Whereas for us to do that, it would be like whatever that is, 40 illuminated push buttons,
Yeah.
and you'd have to. I mean, it's similarly with the 8MU. Those 8 faders cost a chunk of money.
Yeah.
Whereas these ones in here would have cost them an awful lot less money because of the sort of optimizations of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's where things like that teenage engineering stuff is interesting, when you see how they. If you can custom design switches, which they're doing, that have got touch sensitivity and pressure sensitivity built into the switches, that opens up a whole world of things that you couldn't do, that we can't do in our world.
Yeah, there's definitely limitations with the building blocks. We get a Lego set, basically, and we've got to make things out of that. And it is quite nice actually to have that limitation in a way.
Yeah, I think the interface, the sort of API of Eurorack is very nice in that it's such a simple. I would say you only need one panel.
Mm-hmm.
If you make it in a box, you need 6 panels.
Of course, yeah.
It's a lot more difficult and expensive.
Yeah, I realised with these are from this is from a telephone exchange. But
really? Yeah.
They're Euroracks, so
yes.
it all just fits in really easily. It's great.
Oh, so that's very good. That's a
It
beautiful
used to be in
case.
a. Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? I don't want to use it because I have to take this panel off.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Looks like a very good switch there as well.
That's a very nice one.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It's got a fun orange bit in it. It's very pleasing,
Very
isn't
good.
it?
The thing I've been really trying to find is a supplier for the B52 buttons from Synclavier. Synclavier has got the big bank of buttons. Supposedly those buttons were also used in the B52.
Really? I have a Lancaster Bomber release button.
Yes.
Just down there. Actually, here we go.
I love that you have a box marked avionics there.
Yeah, I do. That is,
but that's Bakelite and kind of.
Yeah.
It's quite hard though, isn't it?
It is. Well, you don't want to be releasing them accidentally.
No, that's quite true. Yeah. Feels like it's mechanical though, isn't it?
Yeah. It's really
Like
it's really big spring in there. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. So
Yeah.
4 of them you can make kind of.
Yeah. I feel
Might need a steel panel for that one.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But all this stuff.
How does it mount then? Does this unscrew?
So it is actually. So it was on a cord.
Oh, okay.
Held
So
it
it's
in
like
your
that.
hand. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, it's designed to hold in your hand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's sort of drum triggers or something.
Yeah, it's exactly. Yeah. So I have a whole box of weird components that will eventually be plugged into a synthesizer in some way.
You've got
Which
avionics,
is the
vintage
hardback thing,
components, good GPO components,
Yeah, I have bad
and the Sinister box wet consumables.
Yes, wet and dry consumables. Yeah, that's mostly spray paint, I think, and
Yes.
butane. I just did a video where I was fixing this telephone switch, and I fixed it with a blowtorch.
Oh wow!
So that's a fun one.
Yeah, I've never had to use a blowtorch.
Not recommended. For use on synthesizers, yeah. But yeah, I quite enjoy that. Do you have like a collection of vintagey stuff? Or you're not really interested?
Not really. No, I mean I would love to, but I don't have that stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't been to the. I went to that audio jumble in Kent, somewhere in a big shed in Kent with loads of old men with kind of amazing vintage hi-fis and occasional bits of music gear. That was quite amazing. but I didn't actually buy anything.
Buy anything. You're very controlled.
I bought a bottle of switch cleaner.
Oh, that's useful. Yeah,
which was useful. But I enjoyed going, but didn't actually buy anything. But no, I am quite. I think I am relatively restrained on my purchasing of things.
Yeah, I admire you.
I'm quite. I mean, I will circle through things. I've definitely realised that if I want to buy something, it's probably fine. I can probably sell it for more than I bought it for later on.
With a lot of this stuff,
which is possibly not true with telephone exchanges.
I don't know.
Maybe there's going to be a good second-hand market for those.
I hope so. I don't know. And they'll all come to me. No, I've just. But the trouble is, I don't know. I have quite a few friends now who have telephone exchanges and ridiculous collections of things, and you just start thinking that's normal.
Maybe we're at the stage of it's like mid-90s and synthesizers. Everyone's like, they were throwing it away. I could just pick up this old telephone exchange because it didn't cost me anything. And then in 25 years' time, you'll be like, enormous collector market for telephone exchanges.
It's really funny you say that.
From people watching you and Sam's videos growing up, I've always got the telephone exchange I wanted when I was a teenager.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we've missed the boat already. It's already happened. Really? Exactly that with telephone exchange stuff. Yeah.
Why is telephone exchange stuff worth something?
So what happens, right? When they decommissioned it all, it was all completely worthless, and they didn't actually build into the budget of putting new stuff in, getting rid of the old stuff.
Right.
They just let it go.
Yeah.
So you could get a receipt for £5, you're allowed to take anything.
Yeah.
And then obviously some people took stuff, and so that was the period of time where everybody was into digital synthesizers.
Yeah.
And they chucked out the analog stuff.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we're already in the point where it's sought after, and now is retro.
But
stuff.
Who's buying it?
Lots of ex-engineers and stuff who have now got the sheds full of telephone exchanges, and me and Sam.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so it's really interesting.
So you and Sam disrupting the market? Are they scowling at you like the organ people who hated Sam?
It's a good point. Well, I've just joined I've just joined the Telecommunications Heritage organisation.
Yeah. Are you the youngest member by about 25 years?
Do you know? I might even be the youngest member actually. I'm not sure, but they all seem like lovely people. Everybody that I've met is lovely, but there's a lot of people that are into this stuff, and
that's
so
true.
there is demand.
But it is the former people who worked in it.
Mostly, yeah. I think there's a few enthusiasts like me who've kind of just trying to learn it, but mostly, ex-engineers.
Because I must say I don't really understand. I mean,
Sam's
one, I'm like, it's kind of interesting to have. I mean, telephone exchange is kind of cool, but I don't really understand what's the interaction with it.
Well, it does the clicks, doesn't it?
I mean, it does do a lot of clicks. Yeah.
It does the clicks, and there's a whole. I mean, I'll grab this. This is the kind of like book that they give you when you start.
Yeah.
It's like that thick. Telephony Volume 2, and it's just fascinating.
Is Volume 1 just for beginners? You don't need to get into that.
You don't need to do that. That's for this stuff over there.
Oh, okay,
analog stuff. But this is all the automatic switches. It's just, I don't know if you enjoy. I
loved your video on the thing. What's it called? The Butinsky.
Yes. Oh, did you see that?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I mean, I completely.
It's the little stories.
And there was a lot of interesting stuff from that, and it totally makes sense. How do you get those stories? Is that from the internet or is that from meeting people?
Various sources. There's a couple of books that have been written by people, like
memoirs,
then it's just meeting people, getting exchanging stories, and then this book down there, and then all sorts of stuff. And actually now, from doing it. So I've gone from an observer to partaking in it.
Yeah.
And so, like these, there's going to be a video on these things, which is they're pliers.
They did look quite like pliers, yeah.
But they're specific.
Special
they call them 81s, and they're specifically designed for telephone engineers.
So it's exactly the right size.
Got a stripper and they've got a cutter, and I used those when we were.
Is that the stripper there?
That's it. Yeah.
So you just hold that right, and then
you've got to be careful because they're right next to each other.
Yeah.
But I used those when we rewired the exchange at Sam's Museum,
Yeah.
and I realised why they're so useful through doing it.
Because it's exactly the right size, is it?
They're perfect size, and you're not putting down the tool to get a cutter or a stripper.
Yeah.
It's all in your hand already. And so for
Yeah.
telephone engineers, this is the number one tool, and I
Yes,
didn't really
yeah.
understand why,
Yeah.
and then I did it, and I realised. So
Yeah.
I'm I feel a bit like an investigative journalist,
Yeah, yeah,
or like a
yeah.
historian. I don't.
And it must be a story where that cohort of people must be getting quite old now, are they?
They are getting a bit on, yeah.
Yeah.
Youngest really like 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
Who did?
Yes, I
this
suppose
stuff,
when were they decommissioned then? Like
you're gonna have
90s
to-
or-
yeah, I think 80s,
Yeah.
90s, yeah. So, and then just stored in a shed somewhere,
yeah.
and now it's kind of coming back out again, which is nice.
But it's not. There's no way that it's useful for anything.
It's
That's what I'm just slightly struggling. Like at least if I
Do you know what?
buy a piece of vintage
Yeah.
music, I mean, obviously I'm not really making music with it. At least I am. I mean,
Uh-huh.
are you?
well, I'm trying to find
Obviously
uses
Sam
for it,
is
so-
Sam is making. Well, you're turning it
Yeah.
into a drum machine.
Or it's sequencer. So this
sequencer, yeah.
this is a switch from a telephone exchange, yeah. And that's a.
I mean, I can
That's
see
the
the appeal,
use.
obviously.
My friend Johnny, who make the videos with,
Yeah.
he said exactly that to me.
Yeah.
What's it useful for? What does it do?
And what was your
then
answer?
I was like this, and then, but he's been filming the videos with me, and I can tell he's getting into it.
No, I can understand. I mean, it's funny. I'm very put off by the amount of wiring, obviously.
I
would have immediately made a circuit board to put at the bottom.
Yeah,
Just clamp
I
on
know.
the bottom. And then maybe clamp a Raspberry Pi on the bottom. And
Yeah,
then you've
yeah.
got the whole thing can be wireless.
I completely
but,
understand. Well, I'll grab this one so we can show the camera. Yeah, I showed you this earlier, and you almost recoiled.
But you haven't put that on, have you? That's just been
No.
cut out of the system.
That was all.
So the
joined to
idea
one
is
next
you're
to it,
then
yeah.
going to rewire all that yourself.
Well, luckily, you only really need this if you've got like 1,000 subscribers.
Well, how
Like,
many
so
are you
nice.
expecting?
Me.
Is this the premium tier of Sam?
So-
Are you going to need to run a landline to Sam's place?
I think
Down
we're
the
gonna
Thames.
we'll probably do it. Yeah.
Hire a
I just-
decommissioned boat
Do you know
and
the
take
funny-
it along the Thames.
So he's got his exchange connected to the internet, and I needed to ask him a question one day, and
Yeah.
it was on an opening day.
Yeah.
And so I called him through his exchange, and he got on the website. He's got the number for the workshop,
Yeah.
the extension for the workshop. So I called the workshop, and he was in the workshop and picked up the phone and goes, "All right."
So, okay, so you're not actually going to rewire this.
So luckily, if I only really need 3 wires from the back to do what I want to do with it.
So this is a rotary switch, basically.
That's it. Yeah.
See, rotary switches give me.
I love
I once.
You've got one on here.
Yeah, I know, but that's a PCB rotary switch. So you know James Holden, the musician producer guy.
I don't know. No.
So James Holden, fantastic producer. He, I was talking to him over the internet. He built a module which is like an acrylic front panel, and then one of those really, I mean, not old school like this, but one of those big chunky rotary switches
Yeah.
with maybe like 8 positions and 8 decks.
Mm-hmm.
And then he set the whole thing up as a kind of rotary, as a
Brilliant.
some kind of a matrix switch thing.
Yeah.
He used, I don't imagine he uses it now, but he used it for playing live and being able to almost like switch between patches and this kind of thing.
Great.
Just terrified me, just the amount of wiring.
Terrified.
I really just can't be doing wiring.
I don't
It's
blame
too
you.
much of it.
if I was designing.
Well, I've shown you this.
Designing this now.
Yeah, that's too much wiring for me, that one.
Right. And what's this? Do you want to explain?
So that was the original, that was the prototype for a Euclidean sequencer that I designed.
Mm-hmm.
That I got really excited about it because I really liked the idea. 'Cause it's got this big LED matrix at the top. It should have a Arduino Atmega
Yeah.
in the back, but I've pillaged it for something else. But then I basically got this far with it, and I think I drew a schematic. I'm not sure I even drew a schematic actually, because the schematic's kind of self-explanatory. It's almost like that's obviously how you do it if you have the chip in there. Published the code, and then other people have taken it on and made it, so you can buy these now.
Oh, great.
But I just kind of got a bit. Mine was quite flaky, my code as well. So these encoders didn't work,
Yeah.
and I got put off encoders for life after that. But it was funny. It was a kind of thing I really wanted,
really nice.
And then once I'd made it, I was just like, I don't know
Yeah, because
anymore.
that's the thing, is continuing onto a product
Yeah.
is quite different from realising your idea.
You have to continue to want it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to want to. I suppose that's why I like doing everything on circuit boards, because then. I mean, this isn't true because there's always mistakes, but the idea is once you receive that prototype, or once you build up your first prototype, it's done.
Yeah.
You can ship it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not strictly true, but it's not. It's not. You're just fixing the mistakes. But
Sure.
it's not fundamentally untrue. I can literally, and with something simple, something like the mini drive, pretty much I designed the thing, got the prototypes, it worked.
Yeah.
I got a couple of little tiny changes I had to make, and then I say to Steve, "Well, I made this thing. Do you reckon anyone's going to want one?" And then
Right.
it's over to him, and then he says yes or maybe, and then maybe it'll be limited edition this one.
Yeah.
And then it's finished. It's out in the world, and
Yeah.
it kind of continues on. So I think that's what I really like, is that idea of the reproducibility. That's why wiring terrifies me, because I wouldn't want to have to do it every time.
I
Spoke.
I quite enjoy the challenge of making something like this
Yeah.
actually reproducible.
Yeah.
And almost the more ridiculous it is, the more unreproducible,
Yes.
the more I want to make it a product.
I can completely see it, and I can see for each element in that you've got there's a really clever challenge to be
That's some
solved.
kind of, yeah.
Well, if you if you can find a nice way of mounting the motor,
Yes,
a nice
yes.
rubber wheel, some weird source for the rubber wheel,
Yeah.
or something that's simple enough so that you can say to somebody, you do this and you chop it in half and you stick it on.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
And then you feel is going to be reliable enough so that you're not just going to have to talk every single person through it.
The rubber reel, you brought that up, that's quite an interesting
I bet.
point, because they wear,
Yes.
so you've got to make it replaceable,
Yeah.
which is another challenge. Every single little element of these things,
Yeah.
there's a million little problems to solve. It's quite hard to explain to people sometimes. I don't know if you find this.
I think, well, that's why often the things I do, like actually with this one, literally the hardest thing was finding the part number for that.
Right.
That was absolutely.
And I know you've bought all of these holders
Supposedly,
because I tried to buy some.
Steve reckons he's probably got
Yeah.
most of them.
Yeah, because they are obsolete.
Yeah. Well, they said they're going to redo the moulding, and that
Okay.
they need to redo the moulding.
Right.
But I don't know whether that means they need 20,000 orders,
Right.
because presumably Moog must use them.
You'd
But
think,
they only
yeah.
need one for each mini Moog, so probably if they've got 1,000 of them, that's going to keep them going for.
These are the
quite a while.
mini slide ones, aren't they?
Yes.
You get the bigger ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the one in the mini. I don't know. It looks from the front like that.
But that is, it has to have this.
Yes.
It
Well,
can't-
that's why
can't
when
be
I
an
then
LED.
did the London drive, where the circuit is more like a VCS3. VCS3 doesn't have any illumination on the drive circuit. It has an input circuit. Actually, the input circuit is a bit weird, so it's a bit more changed than that. But it is. I mean, it's funny. They're basically both three transistors, but in a very slightly different order.
Right. Yeah.
And so for that, I just had to find a vaguely plausible
Right. Yeah.
lamp to put at the top, and then actually the drive circuit is the same as the drive circuit of that. So,
Okay. Yeah.
and there it's actually more of it's like a dashboard lamp. It's still an incandescent.
Okay. Yeah.
It's billed as a dashboard lamp, and you can buy 10 of them on AliExpress for like £5 or something. So I don't know what sort of dashboard it's for, but it does the same trick and has a slightly different size hole.
Looks good. Yeah.
It works
it's the
well,
right,
yeah.
right decision, I think. Yeah. But it's similar type. I've got like variations of a couple of my things
Yeah.
as well. It's just a different panel on this. So that's a Creed 7B
Yeah.
font I guess, and this is an ASR 32. And only I know that. I don't think anybody
And which
really
one
cares.
do you prefer?
I like the
You
creamed
like this one? I like the. I think the lettering. It's essentially looks backlit, that one, doesn't it? Whereas the one
yeah.
above, it's like they're on bulbs.
Yeah, so I've done it kind of the negative
Yeah.
on this one to match.
Although,
the
does that look
space.
more dramatic when it's flashing away? Is it bigger light?
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 I had to adjust. I think I have a big problem of like spent a long time on the brightness of the bulbs.
No, I bet. But also the you've got quite a big expanse of bare circuit board there, and so when I did the original microphony, I said we because it's Steve kind of manufactures it, I think, and that was basically a bare PCB board with the little gold thing on it, and he said it was just completely inconsistent what you came back.
Really?
So they were all different. So you would have one batch that were kind of nice.
Yeah.
And then a batch that was just a bit of a sickly colour or just weren't
I've
quite
found
right.
that as well, yeah.
And I just wondered if your space bar and you're going to get quite, because that's a very nice. It looks like the right sort of colour.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether you're able to specify that or how you.
No.
You get it from PCB cards.
It's PCB way. No. JLC.
JLC.
JLC, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just whatever stock they have in.
That's it.
That's a bit uncontrollable.
And I think you can even get, if you were to do a run of a few hundred, or certainly a few thousand, you would get different colours within that stock. Perhaps.
And also, the bare FR4
yeah.
comes from the manufacturer with the stamp on.
Oh, yes.
So sometimes you get a red label.
Stamp on it, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like wood or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, sometimes a couple of panels I've had to chuck them away.
You mean it's a premium limited edition version?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You heard it here first. Yeah. Yeah. I did do a limited version of these relay ones with like the new old stock relays.
So let's
stuff. That's a bit of a weird one. That one. But,
so these are old stock relays.
This one is. That one.
And that's one you can just buy.
Yeah, you can buy that. They still make that one, but
so the base is standard and has not changed for decades.
Well, what I think happened is there were a few companies all making relays, and then they all got consumed by one, and so they were all standardised. And maybe they even copied the footprint to
I think
to
that's
be
what
bought.
happens, because you see that with some components. Like I was looking at. What was I looking at? Looking at even things like codecs, the kind of. You look at these two different ones and you realise, well, they've got the same pin out, and then you look at the kind of instructions. And go, well, actually, they've got the same instructions as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So they're basically copies of it, but they don't. They obviously can't make it explicit.
Yeah, yeah. They all fit in the same socket.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're all copies basically.
But would you get very different specifications that all fit in that same socket? Or is it?
Yeah, very different. Yeah.
So different voltages and stuff.
Yeah, different voltages and different switch configurations and stuff. There was a big. I spent a lot of time when I was making this one trying to make it compatible with different types of
like
switches.
universal. Yeah.
Yeah. So you could put a double pole or a whatever in there, but it just didn't work. It just didn't work. I spent a lot of time trying to work it all out, but it just didn't work. So now it's just one type of switch, but it works much better that way. And I had to consider people putting the wrong relay in it.
Yeah.
Because there's power going to it for these LEDs.
Oh, okay, yes.
And if you put the wrong relay on it, you can actually send the power out of one of the jacks. And then
Oh, I see. Yes. Because you. Yeah.
So I had to do where you would normally just put one resistor for the current limiting of an LED.
To split it.
I had to split it
Oh,
and put it on
that's a
either
good
side,
idea,
so you're protected on the outputs.
Yeah.
Also stuff like that. Yeah. It was quite a fun exercise of like imagining how people could break it.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, it was good. I really enjoyed making these. I think I designed this while I was ill.
Really?
I was ill for a week. I was just, and my partner was away.
Yeah.
So I was just on my own in the flat, and I took over the kitchen table.
Yeah.
And I designed this one. Yeah, and I might have done this one and this one in the same week.
Yeah.
I could be incredibly productive.
Well, it's a burst of
like,
thing, yeah.
When I want to be, but.
And how do you were saying, we were talking about finishing things.
Yeah.
So with something like that, did you feel like you knew where the end was and where it would stop? Or were you worried about, were you thinking, oh, I can improve this and tweak it and polish it forever?
I'm quite exhaustive in my prototyping and designing.
Right.
So I would lay out every single option I could possibly think of,
yeah.
and then cross them off.
Right, yeah.
And then I know it's done.
Yeah.
But it's quite an exhausting process to be so completionist about
yes.
it.
Yeah.
And I know that Jack Beat Boot works the same way as well.
Yeah.
And he tries every single option.
Yeah, and I'll be like, does this work? Yes.
Yeah.
Move on.
I know. Yeah.
Next problem.
Exactly. And that's the way I really should be. And I'm getting better at it.
I mean, it's also really, it's kind of, has somebody else solved this problem?
Right.
Then
yeah.
Yes, we've got that.
And it's like we were saying with ChatGPT. A lot of the time I'm presented with a problem and I want someone to just tell me the answer, please.
Yes. Yeah.
And but you know, if it's a novel problem, which is what you're really going for, because if you want to make something new, you're going to come up against novel problems.
The weirdest thing I did with ChatGPT was I bought these little, not super obscure, like sort of obscure displays you have, but they were little kind of encapsulated alphanumeric displays. I was just ordering something else from somebody and then saw them and was like, I'll buy some of them. And I was like, okay, I want to connect this up to like a Raspberry Pi or something. And I just went to ChatGPT and said, how do I connect a Toshiba PQR7783 to a Raspberry Pi RP2040? And it was like, do it like this.
Right. Well, I'm definitely,
I think I maybe even gave it the pin. I'd done the pin out. I'd read the datasheet roughly, and I was like, okay, I'm going to connect the pins to pins 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and the power here. And then it spat out some Python, and it just worked.
Yeah.
How does it know?
That's scary, isn't it?
I suppose it knows because it's read the whole internet. I mean, that's
it's read the whole internet, yeah.
You haven't read all the whole internet yet.
Not yet.
And you've looked, but...
Yeah, I'm definitely going to try it now, at least to just see what it does. But I don't know if I'd feel... If I put in a question of like, how do I make this module, and it gave me the perfect answer, would I be unhappy?
Well, I don't think you can do that. I think what I've found is it's like having... People say it was like having an intern. I'm not sure that's right. I think it's like having a... You know, if you had a mentor...
Yes.
And you went... Like, say you went to Sam. Sam, you know, how do I make this module? You don't want him to sit there and list you the whole thing.
Yeah.
But if you were sat next to him and you were like, oh, it's stuck. Sam, how do I do this? Try that. I'm stuck again. Try that. That's how you would work together.
Yeah.
And Sam hasn't read the whole internet, so that kind of, I think that's how I view it. And definitely, you don't just say solve the whole problem for me, but you, like, if you understand what the kind of Hello World version is, how do I get this relay clicking? And you know what to ask. And say, how do I make the motor? What's the way of driving the motor on this? And then you move on through those bits. So that's the way I've done it.
Do it bit by bit.
And obviously it will then, it's really annoying when it just gets stuck. It just gets into weird loops. Somebody was saying it has a real problem as well because it does typos as well.
Oh, really?
It will give you code that's just got like a semicolon in the wrong place.
Has it learned those typos from
no
errors
idea
on the internet?
But the thing I was reading about was saying it really struggles with that because it gets in a loop and it can't see the typo.
Okay, yeah.
And it believes the code is right. So you give it, because what you give it the error messages, and often it'll be like, it's very apologetic. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I can see that. And try it like this. And then it does the same thing over, and they were saying it's just kind of impossible when you get into that loop because it can't see it, and it can't. So you then have to, chunks where you just have to figure out yourself, or it will produce, because the way you've got there, it will produce code that's so kind of just convoluted. And you're like, it's because I've been telling you to add things on and add things on. And you need, like I got it to do like an in-browser synth. with faders and FM and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was within like an hour I got it making this thing. And you'd be like, okay, now I want you to, instead of FMing the two, let's have a button where you can AM the two. It would do it, and then you press the button and it was like incredibly loud. That's much too loud. They couldn't really work that out, but then you look through the code and you just change a 0.1 to a 0.001 somewhere. And you're like, okay, that now works. And then I was like, now add MIDI. And it sort of made a start, and I got it so one fader was working with MIDI, but needed a bit. So and with that, I now kind of understand much more about it, and I've got loads of working code to work with. So if I want to do that properly, I can kind of base it on that, and it'll be a lot further along than I would have been.
That's a very good start.
Otherwise, yeah. I think getting to a hello world for me is often quite a difficult thing. Like if you've got a component, you just really can't figure out how to start with it. Being able to get to that first point is quite powerful, I think.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, I used one of the schematic for the Turing machine.
Yeah.
I used the DAC.
Oh yeah.
As a starting point, I modified it slightly.
It's 100% a data sheet.
Is it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But that was the Hello World for the DAC for me, was the Turing machine schematic.
The rest of the Turing machine, or a lot of the stuff with the shift registers, comes from a Ken Stone gated comparator. So that's how I learned how to. There are little capacitors in between the stages, and so that just has a bit in it that has two 4015s making a 8-bit like loop or something.
Yeah.
So that was where that comes from. And then the only clever bit in it was the sort of switch in the middle.
Do you feel like it's putting together Lego bricks with circuits, or is it?
Definitely. Well, there's a lot of that. If you really do the logic stuff, I think when you do some of the op-amp stuff seems a lot more, which I feel I'm only really beginning to kind of learn. But that's when you've got these kind of feedback loops within feedback loops.
Yeah.
And that's where I find the simulator quite useful, because you can just be like, what if I change that value, what happens? Or if I had a switch there, what happens? And you can just be so quick with it.
Yeah.
Whereas, I suppose the Turing machine was all done on breadboard completely.
Yeah.
And I've done some more, because there's obviously much more proper simulators.
Yeah.
I've never used Spice, which is the proper one, but there's another one I used that's similar to that. There was something I was trying to do that I needed to quite accurately simulate something, and I didn't have I can't remember why I didn't just prototype it, but there was something I was trying to do. I think it was because it was to do with it was an amplifier driving speakers.
Right.
I couldn't quite work out how to even measure the performance of the speakers.
Yeah.
Even in front of me, I couldn't really understand how to.
So you got quite into the speakers.
Well, that was a separate thing. That was much like that was just literally building a. There's this American guy called Devon Ojas. Well, it's his company, it's called Devon Turnbull, and he makes these cool speakers that are basically looking back at sort of 60s, 50s, and 60s speakers, and his are made with the speakers from JBL ceiling speakers.
Oh yeah.
So like you'd have in a hotel or something.
Sure.
He somehow discovered this speaker and was like, this is a really good speaker. And he then, designs a kind of wooden enclosure around it, and they look really cool. It cost like $2,000 or $3,000 for a kit to do the woodwork yourself. So I was like, well, I don't really want to spend. They were all out of stock anyway, and I didn't want to spend $2,000 on that. So I kind of got interested, and I was interested in learning how to do CNC plywood, that sort of thing. Something I'd never done. So sort of designed that, found a much cheaper speaker I used was about 45 quid or something. This dual concentric speaker with the tweeter in the middle. And then sort of designed the box in Illustrator, basically. It's just a bunch of lines for the CNC. Made a number of annoying mistakes. So I spent quite a lot of time with a rasp trying to get it to fit. But then the hilarious thing with that was then building the crossover. So crossovers are like this weird parallel universe of electronics where you're using things like polyester capacitors at like, they'd be like 2 or 3 UF at 300 volts or something.
Yeah.
Because they've got to take like 60 watts of power or 100 watts of power going through. These things are like this big and they cost like 25 quid.
That's mad.
And so you, and then you have these inductors, and well, maybe like 15 quid for that. And so I built these 2 crossovers on strip board. But the components were like 100 quid or something for the 2 of them. They were absolutely mad. And I mean, they seem to work and sound very good. You just think, I mean, I was really happy. Well, I was really happy with them until Devon came over to London and did a show at the Listen Gallery in London, where he had his actual proper setup there, which included, amongst other things, a 31-inch subwoofer, which is like this. That'll
make your trousers shake.
Well, the thing is, it's all very kind of restrained and kind of jazzy. So it's not like an 18-inch subwoofer for a sound system, which I kind of prefer in some ways, but it's like just very gently, but absolutely kind of just bass forever, but not like. And so, I went along to that, and I was like, my speaker's all right. There was one particular record he played. I went there and it was a guy playing kind of old sort of blues and sort of rock records and jazz records. And he played these jazz records and they kind of sounded fine, sounded nice. And he played this old 60s kind of electric blues record. I've never listened to music like that before in my life. And it just sounded absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
It was kind of electric bass and really kind of sharp electric guitar. I was like, oh my God, I've never heard that sort of sound, and very different from a sort of. I've heard electronic music through loud sound systems many times. This is a very different kind of vibe.
Can you go back now?
Well, I have to.
Yeah, my stuff is played through an old crappy guitar amp that the speaker's slightly broken and crackles, which is not the best. I've bought my nice speaker.
You've got speakers there, yeah.
But it's mostly through a rubbish guitar amp that's down there.
Well, you've got the space here. You need a nice PA stand on each side. This sort of thing. Nice 15-inch sub, some nice horns at the top.
Funny enough, most of my stuff that I've done hasn't really been for sound.
No, that's true.
If you know what I mean. I'm getting into it more now. I've got a bandpass filter and things, but we're gonna. I should get. That's another thing.
Well, maybe it's not though. Maybe you're a different use of Eurorack. Maybe it's something else.
I think so. Yeah, this is quite. I haven't even actually plugged this into a speaker, have I? The whole time you've been here.
No. You've been listening to the wonderful sounds going on here.
Yeah. I think that's the great thing about Eurorack. I've found is that it doesn't even have to be for music.
I mean, it's very much. We're talking about installations. That idea of a row of them glowing gently and typing out the daily newspaper or something on the thing's a really interesting idea.
That's something I'm working on.
Yeah, I bet. You're doing that analogue, are you? So it scans the newspaper.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking, because they do the is it OCR?
Yeah.
Where you can scan something, and it's like your WAV file.
Yes.
They've got. There's a guy who's Mike. I can't remember his name, but he's found all the original source code, if that's the right term, for the Apollo guidance computer.
Right.
And it's in a book this big, and he's scanned it all, and he's doing
typos.
He's doing kind of like code archaeology on it, reconstructing all the different. There's different.
Is that the code that Margaret Hamilton stands next to? There's that photo of the woman.
Don Isles and Margaret Hamilton.
There's the woman with the massive stack of. Is that the code he's OCRing?
Exactly it. Yeah. Yeah, but it's quite amazing, and so there's different iterations of it where they've improved little bits, and he's going through it, combing through the code to see all the differences. Yeah. And how they've overcome problems. And
is it commented? Presumably it is, isn't it?
Yes,
if it's saw code, it'll be properly commented.
Yeah, it's really funny, and the piece of code that does lights the engine, there's a comment next to it that says "Burn, baby, burn." So yeah.
Did you see that thing I shared? You just reminded me with the what's it called? It's a little thing the size of a CD that has 3 tiny speakers on it.
Yes, the alarm clock.
Yeah, it sounds like an alarm clock being beautifully played.
Yeah.
Because that comes with a fold-out thing of the entire source code, which is all in machine code with comments all through it. And it's just an amazing thing. That's all an 80 tiny 85, which is what he's always used. That's his instrument.
Yeah.
And this one with the 3 speakers is really kind of... It's just so sophisticated.
I looked at that and I thought, okay, the origin of that is the 3 speakers. I think what they play doesn't even matter that much. It's just that it is 3 speakers. Must have been the very start of.
The thing with him is this is a whole sequence. So his first one, he did one which was called 1-Bit Symphony, I think.
Okay.
That was like point-to-point wired, so they were like stuck to a board.
That's your idea of
with,
a nightmare.
But there's not much to it, to be honest.
Okay.
And I haven't got that one. Then he did another one a few years later that was a black PCB with one little speaker. I think it had a speaker. It had a headphone out as well. It might have even just been a headphone out. And a little volume control. And they often have like one button that you kind of skip through tracks and things. Or this one you can fast forward. If you hold the button down, it kind of skips forward.
Nice.
But then this one is what has the 3 speakers. But he did a thing for 50 violins and 50 speakers or 100 speakers. It's a live performance. So it has 100. I think they have like bigger speakers.
Yeah.
All of them playing this kind of 1-bit kind of bleepy stuff, but with a string orchestra. It sounds absolutely beautiful. It's amazing. It's like a string orchestra with these little kind of underlying kind of tones coming through. Really beautiful. And then at the end of the whole piece, the strings really gradually fade out, and you get this kind of gritty digital white noise. Imagine a whole. I mean, if you're there and you've got 50 speakers, all of them playing.
Because that's
white
what
noise
I was
must sound
going to
incredible.
say.
The sound of it.
I could never get the idea of it for an Instagram video.
No. The 3 speakers really are quite interesting.
Really?
Definitely, because they're so high pitched. Your ear, I think, can really tell where it's coming from, and you definitely notice it. I mean, I was saying this to my children. I was like, sure, they're absolutely ridiculous. But you basically hold it in front of your face, and it kind of, and they're like, why are you listening to an alarm clock?
I do remember when I first met you years and years ago in Ealing. I do remember asking you, do your kids think you're like an amazing like synth wizard? And you said no.
No, not at all. They were. I think my daughter now is really, really, really into music.
Okay.
And there are a few people that she likes. Like she really likes Julian Baker, the guitarist, and he thinks that she might have. She's probably got modular synths. I don't know. She might have my stuff. I don't know, but she could do. But that's about as close as they get to it.
Maybe they'll get into the modular as well.
I need to somehow send. No, she's gradually getting in. She's getting more into like my very proud moment when she was. The other day she was playing guitar in the shed and she was like, "How do I make it grungy?"
Yeah.
I have a number of tools for you.
Let's get the soldering iron out.
Exactly.
Like a fuzz pedal. Exactly. I think fuzz pedals is a fantastic place to end everything.
I think so, yeah.
And really back at the beginning, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And but I'll let you get into some warmer places. Yeah, maybe down the pub. All right. See you later, everyone.